I'm going to give you 100% proof that God does not exist. We're going to lay this to rest once and for all. Now, is this even possible? Can you prove that God doesn't exist? A lot of people think it's not possible. Even many atheists think that it's impossible to prove that God doesn't exist, though they believe that it's highly unlikely that he does. So, is it possible? Yeah, it is. The truth is, it's actually pretty easy to prove that the God of the Bible doesn't exist. The problem is that most people aren't smart enough to understand the proof. Not only am I going to give you 100% proof right now that the God of the Bible does not exist, but by the end of this video, I'm going to show you that something does exist that's stranger than you could have possibly imagined. So, are you smart enough to understand? Let's begin. I have faith in you. My name is Morgan. We are here to wake up the world. The idea of the God of the Bible is an attack on rational thinking. So join our war of the mind by subscribing now. And my content is controversial, so make sure you hit the bell so you know when new information comes out. When it comes to proving that God does not exist, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, do you know what a proof is? I mean, how could someone know if I proved that God doesn't exist if they don't know what a proof is in the first place? You see, most people, when they say prove it to me, don't actually mean prove it. What they mean is convince me or show me empirical evidence. Now, this is completely different from a rational proof. People are convinced of things that aren't true all the time. I mean, look at all the people that are convinced that the Earth is flat. Holy fucking shit. So the first thing we need to know is that a rational proof is not the same thing as convincing someone or providing empirical evidence. A rational proof is more powerful than either of these. Someone can be convinced of something that isn't true at all, and empirical evidence never results in certain truth, but only in probability. A deductive, rational proof, when its premises are true and it's used correctly, of course, results in 100% certainty. So let's look at a few examples to see the difference. Now, induction based on empirical evidence goes like this. Let's say that I observe 100 white swans. Then, because of my repeated observations, I conclude that all swans are white. Well, is my conclusion 100% certain? No, it only has a probability of being true. At any time, a black swan may come along and obliterate my conclusion, even though it had empirical evidence supporting it. In fact, this actually happened. People used to think, based on empirical evidence, that all swans were white, until black swans were discovered in Australia in 1697. So, in contrast, now let's look at an example of a rational deductive proof. Premise 1, all humans are mortal. Premise 2, Socrates is a human. Conclusion, therefore Socrates is mortal. Now, if it's true that all humans are mortal, and if it's true that Socrates is a human, then the conclusion that Socrates is mortal must be true. It's impossible for it to be false. It's 100% certain. Of course, for the conclusion to be true, the premises must also be true. So empirical evidence can only ever mean that something might be true, a probability of being true. It can never guarantee the truth of a conclusion, no matter what. Whereas a rational proof, if used correctly, of course, can deliver 100% guaranteed truth. This is critical to remember as we prove that God does not exist. Now, it's not about convincing someone, and it's not about providing empirical evidence. Both of these are flawed. It's about delivering a guaranteed conclusion, and this is done through reason. So how do we prove that God does not exist? Well, first we have to identify what God are we talking about. Do we mean Zeus, Yahweh, Ra? Which one? We can't prove something doesn't exist if we don't know what we're referring to. Well, here we're specifically talking about the God of the Bible. Now, this God isn't just some abstract cosmic force. He has a personality and very specific attributes as laid out in the Bible. According to Orthodox Christianity, this God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving. To prove that this God doesn't exist, all we have to do is prove that he is not one or more of these attributes. And this is easily done. All we have to do is point out that God allows people to go to hell. According to Orthodox Christianity, hell is the worst fate imaginable. It's an eternity of torture. So since God allows people to go to hell, this means either he is not all-loving, because no being of infinite love would allow souls to be tortured for all eternity, or he is powerless to stop this from happening, in which case he is not all-powerful, or he doesn't know that they're going to hell, in which case he's not all-knowing. No matter how you crack it, this absolutely obliterates the existence of the Orthodox fundamentalist Christian God. He just simply doesn't exist. He can't exist. It's an impossibility. It's a logical contradiction. His properties and actions result in a contradiction. What we're talking about here is a version of what's known as the Epicurean paradox, but we're just getting started. Some fundamentalist believers will say that God allows people to go to hell because that's their punishment for not believing in him. They say God wants people to have free will, and that's simply their punishment for choosing not to believe. Now, how insane is this? This is beyond crazy for so many reasons. First of all, what kind of a maniac of a God gives someone free will, but then allows them to be tortured for eternity if they don't choose what God wants them to choose? How is that free will? I mean, really think about it. Would you do that? If you're a sane person, of course you wouldn't. So why would a being of supposed infinite love do it? This is reprehensible to any being with any shred of decency at all, let alone a supposed all-loving being. Furthermore, it's not like hell is the only example that results in the nullification of the God of the Bible. In the story of Noah, God drowns the entire world population except for Noah and his family because he's unhappy with their choices. So what kind of all-loving God that apparently wants everyone to have free will drowns every living thing on earth because he doesn't like their choices? By the way, I know you've heard the story of Noah's Ark over and over, so you become desensitized to it, so people don't really think about it. But come on, I mean, really give it some thought. God drowns everyone except Noah, his family, and the animals on some boat. Think about how many innocent lives would have been drowned. Children, babies, all the animals. Does that sound like an all-loving God? No, of course not. Wake up. I mean, you wouldn't do that. So how could an all-loving God do that? Now, the thing is that these are just a few examples. The Bible is riddled with contradiction after contradiction. The attributes and actions associated with the God of the Bible results in logical contradiction. This means his existence is impossible. Literally. This is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. It's not highly unlikely. It's literally impossible for this God to exist. In fact, this God shares more in common with the definition of Satan than a loving God. What I want to get across is that if you suffer from religious trauma syndrome, you can begin to put your mind at ease. There is no way this God can exist as described, and that's 100% guaranteed. You can be certain of it. But we're about to go even deeper here because I'm going to show you that something else does exist, and this will blow your mind. We've established that one of the attributes of God is omnipotence. That is, being all-powerful. So according to fundamentalist Christianity, nothing is impossible for God. Nothing at all. So let's discover the omnipotence paradox. If God is all-powerful, can he create a stone that is so heavy that he can't lift it? Well, if he can create it, then that means he's not all-powerful because he can't lift the stone. But if he can't create it, then he is also not all-powerful. Remember, fundamentalist Christianity says that nothing is impossible for God. Well, this is clearly impossible. Now, admittedly, this heavy stone example is really crude, but it's easy to understand. A more accurate question would be, If, given the axioms of Euclidean geometry, can God create a triangle with internal angles that do not add up to 180 degrees? Now, we could also come up with a similar but different question for non-Euclidean geometries, such as Riemannian geometries. But if this sounds a little too complicated, we can get even simpler by simply asking the question, could God make 2 + 2 = 5? Of course he can't. If it's not apparent to you why, just go back to the heavy stone example. While it is crude, it's the easiest to understand, and all of these examples contain within it the same sort of logical contradiction. So what do all these questions have in common? They are breaking the rules of reason, the rules of logic, the rules of mathematics. They simply aren't possible because these laws can't be broken. This results in some important consequences because even God cannot break these rational mathematical laws. This means that God is restricted by them. So either these laws are more powerful than God, which means that God isn't God at all, but that these laws are God, or that God can't break these laws because these mathematical laws are what God is, and God can't go against its own nature. Either case leads to the same conclusion, that mathematical law is God. The God of the Bible does not exist. God is mathematical law. But wait, if that's true, is this mathematical God conscious, and did he create the universe in 7 days and do everything else the Bible claims? No. Let me explain. So the principle of sufficient reason is a very important yet very simple law. The principle of sufficient reason simply means that for everything that exists, there must be and exist a rational explanation for how it can exist. To put it very simply, the principle of sufficient reason means that reason is true. We all automatically accept it as soon as we start to look for reasons why something is true or false. It's what powers thought and allows proofs to work. If you deny this principle, you're literally denying reason itself, and if that's the case, then there's no reason I could possibly give to you for anything at all, because you would be literally denying reason. So let me introduce to you one more law, then I promise we'll have what we need. Resulting from the principle of sufficient reason is a law called OCCAM'S razor. OCCAM'S razor simply means that existence will choose the most simple path or option. Now, why is that? Well, it must choose the most optimal path because there would be no reason to choose a more complicated path. It would go against reason. It would violate the laws that we've just been discussing. So getting back to God, if God is mathematical law, then God doesn't need to be conscious. It doesn't need to be self-aware. A conscious, self-aware creator God, like the one described in the Bible, violates OCCAM'S razor. Why is this? Because unconscious mathematics is all we need to generate the universe. So this is compatible with OCCAM'S razor. A self-aware creator God is an extra complexity that isn't necessary. It's extra. We don't need it. So it violates OCCAM'S razor. Now let's see why. So what does it mean to say mathematics is the ultimate force in existence? Is there some cosmic piece of paper floating around somewhere in the universe with the laws of mathematics inscribed on them? Are numbers floating around in space? No, of course not. What mathematics is ontologically, what it actually is frequency. It's energy. To be precise, it's sinusoidal waveforms. So mathematics is not abstract numbers on paper. They are living frequency patterns defined by sinusoidal waveforms. That's what we mean by math. It's living energy that obeys precise laws. Now, a sinusoidal wave, considered across one full cycle, is equal to 0. This is important. Because it's equal to 0 across a full cycle, it's dimensionless. It's not something physical, it's mental. So what mathematics truly is mental frequency, frequency of mind. So here we have the concept of God as not a self-aware creator God, but a collection of unconscious mathematical frequencies, sinusoidal waveforms. By a mathematical process called a Fourier transform, we can transform mathematical frequency information into mathematical space-time information. Now, this is at the heart of quantum mechanics, which shows that all of reality is based on waveforms, not material particles. What this means is that we can construct all of so-called physical reality, the space-time universe, from nothing but the interactions of mathematical frequency patterns. This is why evolution exists. The slow process of evolution is mathematical patterns combining behind the scenes. A creator God did not create the universe. Instead, existence is an evolving system of living mathematics. But wait. There's more. So here we've defined God as not some kind of self-aware creator God like the one described in the Bible. We know for certain that's impossible. Instead, we've defined a system of living mathematical frequency patterns. But by the principle of sufficient reason, if one of these systems is possible, then there's nothing to prevent many of these systems from existing. In other words, if one mathematical God could exist, why couldn't many of them exist? There is no reason why they couldn't. So they do. What this means is that reality is a myriad of mathematical minds all interacting with each other. And truly, that is all that exists. You aren't what you think you are. You see, you are an eternal system of living mathematical frequencies. You are a mathematical mind, and this world is the result of our collective frequencies according to the laws of ontological Fourier mathematics. This world is not physical at all. It's a collective dream. It's our dream. A creator God did not create this world. We did. We just did it unconsciously, just like you unconsciously generate a dream world every time you go to sleep. We as a whole, all of the minds in existence, unconsciously generated the universe at the Big Bang. And just like you have a different body every time you go to sleep and dream, you as an eternal mind get a new body in the universe at the end of every life cycle. That is, you connect to this universal collective dream via a new body, a new avatar. But that's not what you truly are. You aren't the body that your mind connects to. You are an eternal mathematical mind. Life cycle after life cycle is how you learn, grow, and evolve as a mind by optimizing your internal mathematical patterns. This means that you have the potential to become all-powerful through this evolution, to become a God. And all of us together have the potential to become God through our mathematical evolution. Now, something I want to say here, this video is all about proving the God of the Bible does not exist. Everything else that we just discussed, I described very quickly, and I've gone into great detail on these other points in my other videos and books. So if you want to know how these things are true and how you can know them logically and rationally, make sure you check them out. So if you suffer from religious trauma syndrome, or you're thinking about leaving the faith, I want you to know you can be absolutely sure the God of the Bible does not exist. It's not just highly unlikely. It is a literal impossibility. And understanding this helped me a lot with my RTS since I grew up indoctrinated into Christianity. So tell me your thoughts in the comments right now. This is a very important topic. Like and share this video. And if you want to hear my story with religious trauma syndrome, watch my video, Is Mainstream Religion Actually Child Abuse? Join our War of the Mind and help us wake up the world by subscribing right now. And if you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. Patreon, and you'll get access to our secret live streams. A big shout out to all my supporters. My name is Morg, and I am Hyperion. Ad Astra, to the stars.